I want to share with you something that you don't know. And I think I can say this with some certainty because I'm pretty knowledgeable about what's going on around America and what people are thinking and what people think our history is. And I didn't know this. And this is just, you're going to find this amazing. So just hang on for the next, 5, 6, 8 minutes here. Let me share this with you. First of all, we've got this whole Second Amendment thing going on, right? This whole general craziness. And the kind of accidentally, Larry Ward, the chairman of Gun Appreciation Day, brought what I'm going to share with you into sharp relief on CNN today. He was being interviewed, and here's what he had to say. This is a pro-gun guy.
If African Americans had been given the right to keep and bear arms from day one of the country's founding, perhaps slavery might not have been a chapter in our history.
African Americans were brought here as slaves and kept in slavery, so there's not a relationship between the two. Slaves, by definition, don't have guns. But he's actually getting really close to the real truth of the Second Amendment. And again, a tip of the hat, I mentioned this yesterday to Shano, our associate producer here, who shared with me Carl T. Bogus's, Dr. Bogus, it's really his name, B-O-G-U-S, Roger Williams University School of Law, associate professor, his book, The Hidden History of the Second Amendment, which I read in its entirety today. And I pulled out about, 15, 20 pages of excerpts, and I want to just share with some of this with you. This is why there was a Second Amendment. 1787, the Constitution was written. 1788, it was being sold to the states, and the states were having meetings to decide whether or not to ratify it. It was ultimately ratified in 1789, and then in 1789, 91, the amendments were added to it, the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights. So that's the timeline. So in June of 1778, in Richmond, Virginia, the delegates of Virginia got together to decide whether or not they were going to vote for this Constitution, which one of their own, James Madison, was out aggressively promoting. And they had some concerns, and there were people from other states who were visiting as well. And in fact, many of the southern states were kind of, talking to each other about this at the time. And here is, I just want to share some quotes from these meetings that were happening in 1788. The actual people, the actual legislators. The first is from Pierce Butler of South Carolina. He said, the security the southern states want is that their Negroes not be taken from them, which some gentlemen within or without doors have a very good mind to do. In other words, he's talking about slavery. The states were concerned that the Constitution would allow the northern states to end slavery in the southern states. William L. Smith of South Carolina. He said, if these amendments are adopted, they will go a great way in preventing Congress. Now, here he's talking about the Second Amendment. Because the Second Amendment, in fact, actually, in a way, I'm giving you the closing argument on this before I'm giving you the argument. But basically, here's the argument in a nutshell. The Second Amendment was put into place to preserve slavery for the South. That's why it's there. And William L. Smith of South Carolina, one of the delegates, he said, if these amendments are adopted, they will go a great way in preventing Congress from interfering with our Negroes after 20 years. Keep in mind, the Constitution actually ended the importation of slaves in 1808 and said no more taxes on slaves in 1808. The founders, the people who wrote it, actually thought that that would end slavery in 1808, which is basically 20 years after 1888. It's 30 years, actually, I think. But in any case, he says, if these amendments are adopted, it will go a great way in preventing Congress from interfering after 20 years. Otherwise, they may even, within the 20 years, by strained construction of some power, embarrass us very much. In other words, end slavery. The Revolution had changed America because the northern states were banning slavery like there was no tomorrow. The Americans had embraced this all men are created equal idea on which we based our slavery. In fact, Dr. Samuel Johnson, who was from the North and was anti-slavery, he made the comment, how is it that the loudest yelps for liberty come from the drivers of slaves? Vermont had banned slavery in 1777, even though they were not yet a state. Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and New York all enacted gradual legislation of slavery in 1777, 1778. Two prominent citizens of New York founded a group called the New York Society for Promoting the Manumission of Slaves, the liberation of slaves. The first two presidents of the group were first John Jay, our first Supreme Court justice and one of the authors of the Constitution, and then secondly, Alexander Hamilton. Southerners were very, very worried that the Northerners were going to blow up the slave business. And this is, now here's a quote from the book, this book, The Hidden History of the Second Amendment by Carl Bogus. He said, Virginia was a state living in perpetual fear. Fully 44% of Virginia's total population was black, and in some areas, particularly in the eastern part of the state, blacks constituted the majority. Whites were ever mindful that if the right opportunity presented itself, blacks might cut their heads off. This is not hyperbole. On a Sunday morning in September 1739, for example, a group of about 20 blacks broke into a store near Stono, South Carolina for guns and powder. They decapitated the two white storekeepers, displaying their heads on the front steps, and then headed south, sacking and burning homes and killing whites on their way. They marched while flying banners, beating drums, and calling out liberty to attract more slaves to the rebellion. According to one account, their numbers increased, quote, increased every minute by new Negroes coming to them so that they were above 60, some say 100, end quote. But for a coincidence, the rebellion may have grown considerably larger and perhaps even succeeded, but by chance, the lieutenant governor of South Carolina rode within eyesight of the rebel group on his way to Charleston with 4 other men. As best events can be reconstructed, that lieutenant governor raced to a Presbyterian church in Willtown, which was in the midst of Sunday services. This was white planters. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, somewhere between 20 and 100 armed and mounted militiamen attacked the rebel group. About 44 blacks and 21 whites died in the ensuing battle. As a warning against future insurrections, the militia decapitated black rebels and placed their heads, quote, up at every milepost they came to, end quote. So, everyone in the South knew the story of the Stono Rebellion. In fact, it wasn't just one. One researcher identified over 250 rebellions, each involving more than 10 slaves. One scholar noted slavery was not only an economic and industrial system, but more than that, it was a giant police system. And the basic instrument of control was called the slave patrol, also referred to as the militia. These militia patrols made sure that blacks were not wandering where they did not belong, gathering in groups, or engaging in suspicious activity. Virginia, South Carolina, and Georgia all had well-regulated slave patrols. By the mid-18th century, the 1700s, the patrols had become the responsibility of the militia. Georgia passed laws in 1755 and 1757, for example, carefully dividing militia districts into discrete patrol areas. The Georgia laws required patrols to examine every plantation every month and authorized the patrols, the militias, to search, quote, all Negro houses for offensive weapons and ammunition and to apprehend and give 20 lashes to any slave found outside plantation grounds, end South. End quote. In other words, in the South, these these patrols to stop slave rebellions were the militia. Now, I'm going to explain to you after the break how James Madison changed the Second Amendment to go from for the security of a free nation to the security of a free state to satisfy Georgia and Virginia. Right after this.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
The Second Amendment was put into place to preserve slavery for the southern states and get them to sign on to ratifying the Constitution. Period. And full stop.